Welcome to this special edition of Fox Nation. I'm Greg Jarrett. My guest today, Sean Hannity. He, of course, is host of Hannity on the Fox News Channel and the Sean Hannity Show on radio across the nation. And he's just come out with a new book. You can pick it up in bookstores or online. It's called Live Free or Die, America and the World on the Brink. Sean, good to be with you.
First of all, we're great friends. I've interviewed your number one bestsellers, and I can never duplicate it, but it's great to do this. Thank you for coming. It's a hot day, so if we start sweating so people know why. But anyway, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for taking the time. There's a Latin phrase at the bottom of the book. Explain it.
Live free or America dies. We were talking ahead of time, and we know the famous Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. We know the motto, the slogan of New Hampshire's live free or die. And I'll be honest, I watched you pound out every single word of your book every night, your two books, because your office was next to mine. And I haven't done a book in 10 years. The moment is critical. This is a turning point, tipping point, all those things we always talk about, choice, selection. It's the biggest in our lifetime, and the stakes couldn't be higher. And I wanted to lay out the case so anybody and everybody could know exactly what is at stake here. And I've never, ever been as worried for this country that is so great as I am for this country now.
Right.
And, it is every issue. It's not just some issues. It's everything. And I think the race has changed dramatically in the last few weeks. And I think that now it is very clear cut. I can go through them very quickly. We can get into more detail if you like. But, if you are happy with the anarchy, the lawlessness, the lack of law and order, anarchists taking over city blocks, chop, chaz, spaghetti, potluck dinner, autonomous summer of love zones where innocent Americans die. If you're happy with on average 60 or 70 people in Chicago that are shot every weekend, and they don't do anything about it, and Biden and Barack didn't do anything about it the 8 years they were in office. If you're happy with the violence in New York City, or you agree with Joe on we absolutely, the police have now become the enemy. Okay, there are some bad cops. I always talk during the whole Russia collusion issue and the deep state about the 1%, but I always made a distinction about the 99%. The same for police officers.
Right.
These are people that are putting their lives on the line every single day to protect and serve their cities, their towns, their communities. They deserve better. Joe Biden doesn't have one good word to say about them. The police have now become the enemy, and yes, I support reallocating funds. They don't like the word defund anymore because they don't like the way it sounds, so they've focus grouped a new term, but it's defund. That's what that word means. So that's law and order. Then we've got higher taxes. Joe Biden is running on dramatically raising taxes on every American. Donald Trump's tax cuts have created the most massive, employment record, low employment numbers we've ever seen. And it benefited all Americans that have historically been left behind, even in spite of liberal Democratic policies. That is at stake in this election. National security, energy independence, what kind of people we want on the bench, our judiciary, originalists, versus those that would legislate from the bench. These are profound, deep issues. Here's another one, border security or the United Sanctuary States of America and amnesty, and then free health care for illegal immigrants. Foreign policy, you want somebody who's fighting for better trade deals successfully. All the predictions that Donald Trump was a protectionist never came true. None of it came true, but he did get better trade deals with Canada, Mexico, Japan, our Western European allies, China, and elsewhere around the world, and we're better off because of it. And American manufacturers saw tremendous job creation, jobs Joe and Barack said were never coming back. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is an overview. And as I got into the specificity in the book, we go through all of that.
You do. In fact, I want to quote from the book, several parts of it, page 60. If empowered Democrats promise to take or consider the following actions, and you list 30 of them, I'm just going to read a few. enact the new Green Deal, ban fracking, pack the Supreme Court, gut the Second Amendment, abolish or nullify the Electoral College, downsize the military, abolish private health insurance, impose a wealth tax, a death tax, increase the top marginal rate to 70%. The list goes on and on. Is Joe Biden on board with this?
On board? He's tripled down on it. Think about that. He joined this insanity, police are the enemy, reallocate funds from the police. Now, look at what he's now embraced just in recent weeks. And this is a phenomenon. I think it's a sign of weakness. I'm hoping that I'm right. You know, we're less than 100 days away from the most important election in our lifetimes. Okay, who he literally, the plagiarist that he is, he's plagiarized, let's see, Robert Kennedy, Neil Kinnock, other people as well, apparently plagiarized.
Got kicked out of law school for plagiarism.
Right, exactly. Then he lifted and plagiarized Bolshevik Bernie Sanders' socialist agenda. Now, what makes this unique is whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, usually in primaries, you will go to your base. You will try and shore up your base because the base is more motivated usually to vote. But in a general election, you move to the center. Joe Biden didn't have Bernie's base. He's adopted and lifted word for word his economic policies. Okay, that is pure, unadulterated socialism. He looks to AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Congresswoman. He's adopted her new Green Deal agenda and is pledging to spend trillions of dollars on the new Green Deal that would eliminate oil, gas, coal, the lifeblood of the world's economy, and also offers everything to be free. It is mathematically unsustainable, impossible. These are dreams that could never be fulfilled under any scenario. And then he's got, you mentioned guns, then he's working with Beto, I call him Bozo O'Rourke. The guy said, yeah, we're going to come knocking on your door and take your guns. He's partnered with him. Then you got Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer. If they're elected, you got 125 years of swamp experience. You got 125 years of broken promises. You got 125 years. What the hell have they done to make this country more safe, more secure, more prosperous? And their track record is abysmal. Joe's record as vice president is even more abysmal. Hopefully we'll get into that. And so you're asking me if Joe Biden will do that? He's embraced it. He's owning it. It is the essence of his campaign. And what's strange and unique about this, Greg, is Democrats used to try and hide it. Mm-hmm. They used to believe it, but they would never say it. What makes this different is because I never believed that this country, I always believed we were right of center country. Maybe not as conservative as I am, or maybe as you are conservative. I'm assuming you are. I don't know for sure. I never asked. You're more in the journalistic side than I am, although we give very strong legal opinions. I've always believed we're center right. But now, and the left was sort of marginalized. The Bolshevik Bernies were marginalized. The Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were marginalized. They're now embraced by their Democratic presidential candidate. This is the new extreme radical Democratic Socialist Party. What does it mean for America? If those policies are adopted, I want everybody that's watching Fox Nation to understand this. If these policies are adopted, it will fundamentally alter and destroy. Irreparable harm will come to the United States. This is a pipe dream. This is a prescription for unmitigated disaster. And the America that was based on capitalism, liberty, freedom, a democratic republic, constitution, will exist no more. You want to know why I say live free or America dies? Because what has made this country so special and so unique is that it's a country founded on freedom. Freedom, okay, Barry Farber, I always quote him. He's one of the great pioneers of talk radio, and just recently passed away. And he always would say there's never been a country, he says there's no perfect country, but there's never been a country in the history of mankind that has accumulated more power than the United States of America and abused it less. I add, there's never been a country in the history of mankind that has accumulated more power, abused it less, and used that power, liberty, freedom, capitalism, risk, reward, exceptionalism, can't say that I guess today, American exceptionalism, to advance the human condition. Because all of the advancements made because we are free and brilliant Americans create goods and services that people want, need, and desire, that makes them money, and some of them even get, quote, rich, and they're horrible people, but you don't force people to buy your services, or you don't force people to buy your products. That has led to scientific innovation, medical breakthroughs. It has led to, let's start with the simple stuff in life. It used to not be that every home had a washer and a dryer and a microwave and a big screen TV and a refrigerator and a freezer. All of these advancements that you look that have now, I mean, are throwaway cars in this society. I owned them when I was poor, when I was starting out my adult life.
Right.
And I used to fix them myself. I painted myself. I did tune-ups, brakes, alters, starters. You know, anything I can get done, I do myself. I open the hood of a car now, and I can't do a darn thing. I have to take it to the real mechanic or the dealer. That's all because of freedom. Freedom is on the ballot this year.
One of the most important chapters, I think, is socialism, a history of failure. Young people today seem to think that socialism, means free stuff.
Everything's free, Greg.
They have no idea that the history of socialism, you lay this out meticulously, is a history of failed economies, destroyed lives, impoverished communities.
Every time.
Yeah. And
every time.
Is this what we would be looking at if Democrats win the Senate, if Democrats win both the House and the presidency?
Biden, Bolshevik Bernie, AOC, Schumer, Pelosi. This is their agenda. This is radical extreme socialism. You're right about one thing. It's fascinating. Well, we're going to guarantee your student loans forgiven. We're going to guarantee you a job at the right wage. We're going to guarantee you a government vacation, government healthy food, government income, everybody, all fair. And we're gonna guarantee your retirement and your health care and every. To me, there's a psychological play in that. Wow, okay, I'll never have to worry. The stress of life, though, this is the beauty of freedom, liberty, capitalism, risk, reward, is that that stress is not a bad thing. The idea that the government is going to fulfill these promises, Social Security headed for bankruptcy, Medicare headed for bankruptcy. How did that Obamacare thing work out, Greg? Keep your doctor, keep your plan, save on average family $2,500 per family per year. No, it's even worse. Millions lost their doctors, millions lost their plans. On average, across the country, Americans are paying 200% more, and there's almost 40% of the country now that has only one Obamacare exchange option. Now, that's just that one promise. That was the biggest lie told. Biden wants to double down on it and even triple down on it when he gets to some deal with Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. If Biden even is in full control, because he's now capitulated to the most radical group of people ever. I was saying earlier, Democrats used to try to hide this. They're now out in the open. Now the question is America going to buy what they're selling? Back to the psychological component. Okay, it's appealing that, okay, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be secure. I'm going to have my student loan debt forgiven. I'm going to have government healthy food and retirement and health care. And okay, sounds great. When you add it all up, it's $94 trillion in 10 years with the new Green Deal, because we're also eliminating oil, gas, coal, zero emissions in 15 years, according to Joe.
Planes, cars, trains.
Well, okay, so that's the lifeblood of the world's economy. Donald Trump, for the first time in 75 years, has made the United States of America energy independent, and for the first time in even a longer period of time, we are the world's #1 producer of energy. Energy is the lifeblood of the entire world's economy. Now, if some great environmentalist liberal wants to come up with alternative energies that are free, lower priced, they're going to be multi-trillionaires. Great, go for it. But we don't have that technology yet. We're developing some. We have promise in some areas. I'm an all of the above guy. Whatever's going to work, I'm for. I believe we should be good stewards over the environment. The problem is, and I don't care if you take the former Soviet Union, Scandinavian countries, European nations, Eastern Europe, East Germany, for example, before the wall came tumbling down, and every time you give up every time you take on the security that they're offering, which always proves to be false, there's never been the socialist promise that's ever fulfilled. That is the failure of socialism. You give up your liberty and you give up your freedom, and what usually then emerges is some type of tyranny. All right, I mentioned in the book Cuba, I talk about Venezuela. If socialism was so great with all the energy reserves Venezuela has, they'd be the richest country on earth. Jorge Ramos went there and actually chronicled people picking food out of garbage trucks because of such poverty. When you have statism, it lends itself to corruptness. It also eliminates freedom. It then becomes tyrannical in most instances. And all of the liberties and freedoms that did lead this country to the greatest standard of living in the industrialized world, they all go away. And that is the failure of socialism. It gets worse in the former Soviet Union. You know, look at the wall for East Germany, West Germany. Who wanted to leave what country? The East Germans were willing to risk their life to try and get into West Germany, right? Why are we building walls in America? To keep people out in? No, because everyone wants to come in. And it's amazing to watch immigrants to this country. And I've met so many wonderful people in my life from all over the world. They get the first shot at freedom and the first chance to bring their God-given talents to fruition. And you watch them soar. I'll never forget, because I've been financially independent since I'm 10 years old. Been a fiercely independent kid. People always like to famously write, Hannity's a college dropout. Guilty as charged, because I was paying my own way through college. I never took a penny from my parents for money. I got a student loan that I paid back in full. And I worked from the time I was 8 with a paper out. And then the time I was 12, I was washing dishes by hand in a busy restaurant every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I became a short order cook. Then I became a busboy. Then I became a waiter. Then I became a bartender. And I always had a lot of money in my pocket. Still do, actually, thanks to this. By the way, it's 400 degrees, just so you know. He picked the hottest day, Greg did, to be here. I'll change shirts occasionally when I need to. But those jobs made me a better person. Then, when I was paying my way through college, I ran out of money and I go to work. Then I went into construction. I started painting houses. Then I learned how to hang wallpaper. Then I started doing reconstruction work. Then I did roofing, fell off 3 stories of a roof, hit the ground, became a conservative. Got a little sense knocked into me. Well, this part of my arm from here down was dangling, separate, and I broke the radial head. My grandparents came here, all 4 of them from Ireland. They had nothing. They had $10 in their pocket. My father grew up poor in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. His mother died about 5 weeks after his birth from complications from childbirth. My dad, it was a big deal. He fought 4 years in the Pacific in World War II, and it was a big deal for him to move from Bed-Stuy to Long Island. He was a family court probation officer and a waiter on the weekends. And my mom grew up poor in the South Bronx, and she became a prison guard who worked 16-hour shifts pretty much my whole life. But for them, they stood on the shoulders of my grandparents, their parents, and I stand on all their shoulders. And the idea is that you want to create an environment at every generation you build upon the previous one. That's the hope, the dream that is America. How did we invent all these incredible things that we have? You know, you can go back to Henry Ford, you could talk about cars, planes, trains, and automobiles, construction, skyscrapers, cities, you name it. That is all American greatness and ingenuity. A lot of it is because of, the freedom that people have to bring out of them what talents God gave them. The Latin derivative for education is educare, to bring forth from within. Well, that's predicated on what? That God put it there. What does our founding document say? Our Declaration. We're endowed by a Creator. Those are natural rights, God-given rights. And, we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By the way, you can't pursue happiness if you don't have safety and security and law and order, like in Chicago, New York, Seattle, and Portland. You can't pursue happiness if the rungs of the ladder are ripped out from under you, and the educational system is destroyed. You want to talk about the failure of socialism in America? How's America's educational system? There you go. You have a great city of Baltimore. You look at New York City, you look at Chicago, you look at Baltimore, you look at Portland, you look at Seattle, you look at any of the big cities in Los Angeles. We as a country spend more per capita on education than any other country in the industrialized world. Government-run education, okay? Baltimore, third highest per capita spending in education in the world. The city of Baltimore has 13 public high schools. Guess how many kids, or what percentage of kids in the high school are proficient in math?
Yeah, I would imagine a very low percentage.
Zero.
Zero.
Not one child.
Really?
How's that socialism working? How are government-run schools working? I want to bring this to a level where people can understand what's at stake here, because the cities that we've been talking so much about, and that this is not in the book, but it fits perfectly with my argument, that if you look at New York, Baltimore, Chicago, we could predict on any given weekend, what, 60 will be shot this coming weekend, 70, 12, 14 dead. How many children will be shot? We've had a 1-year-old killed in Brooklyn, New York, an 8-year-old killed in Atlanta, Georgia, a 7-year-old killed in Chicago, a 19-year-old young man. I interviewed his father, Horace Lorenzo Anderson Sr., his namesake Jr., killed in the Chop Chaz Summer of Love Zone. These kids are never coming back. We're losing thousands of our kids. So how did these states that have adopted their mini versions, or, we say the states are, or 50 experiments, they're supposed to be autonomous in the sense that we believe in states' rights and their ability and freedom to do what's best for the citizens in their state. But all these cities have one thing in common. They've been run by liberal Democrats for decades. They have failed spectacularly in their number one duty, which is security and safety, all of them. They've all failed. Our national treasure, our children are dying. Our moms and dads are getting shot. Our American family, our grandmothers and grandfathers, they're getting shot, and many of them are dying. The president's right when he says these are war zones. He's correct. So, and then you add the educational factor. If you can't read, write, do math, and history, and that's what your government schools are failing you on, forget America's dream. You're shut out. It's over. We have failed them there on that spectacular level. So, add the socialism, all the promises that you point out, page 60 in my book, all of them. And you tell me what has government done so well that they would warrant us putting more faith, hope, and trust in them.
Many of the arguments you're making today are in your new book, Live Free or Die, available online, Amazon.com, probably BarnesandNoble.com, Hannity.com. There it is. One of the chapters, chapter 5, to me is one of the most important. It's called...
I can't outdo you in this chapter. And by the way, I thought a lot about that as I'm doing the chapter.
It's called The Hoax of the Century, in which you explain in excruciating detail, but appropriately, that it was all a hoax. And the FBI knew it was a hoax. Newly discovered documents now show that, yet they lied to the American people. Is this, in your judgment, the worst case of government abuse and corruption that you have ever seen?
Biggest abuse of power, corruption scandal in American history. You had 2 #1 best-selling books on this very topic, both ends of it. I hope you don't mind I stole, because we call it the same thing. I watched you go through the details. There was I call it the ensemble cast of us.
Right.
You were a big part of it. John Solomon was a big part of it. Joe and Victoria were a big part of it. I'm going to miss people. Sarah, you, but this was a 3.5-year, ordeal that this country was put through. We were right, and the mob and the media was wrong. They lied. Now, the problem is you start at the beginning. You have the same cast of characters, the deep state, Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe, all these others, They start with saving Hillary Clinton from a clear violation of the Espionage Act. You cite the law. I have it burned into my brain, 18 U.S.C. 793. The only difference between me and you is you can give me the subsections and in detail. And then it was the subpoenaed emails deleted, bleach bit, hammers, devices, all of it combined. And then it was Russia, Russia, Russia. They were warned before the first FISA application. Now, again, the bulk of information in the application says at the top of a FISA warrant, verified, right? The bulk of information was Hillary Clinton's, ironically, bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier, misinformation. It became, even the New York Times concluded that. And it was used to take away the rights of one person named Carter Page, his constitutional rights and civil liberties, but it was done to spy on Donald Trump, the candidate, to spy on Donald Trump and his transition team, and in the words of Attorney General Barr, deep into the Trump presidency. They were warned before the first FISA warrant. Kathleen Kavlik at the State Department said, don't trust Christopher Steele. It's unverified. Hillary paid for it. There's a political agenda. Bruce Orr did it in August of 2016. They did it anyway. Then it gets even more insidious and more evil because there's 4 warrants in total, 3 renewal applications. Comey signed the first 3. Buente signed 1. Sally Yates signed 1.
McCabe signed 1.
McCabe signed 1.
Rosenstein.
Rod Rosenstein signed the last one. Based in the last interview he gave before the Senate Judiciary Committee, he said, oh, knowing what I know now, I would not have signed it. It was false information from the beginning. And the problem is that they've dragged the country through hell. They abused their power, and they did it to take down a president. They had an insurance policy. First, they wanted to stop him from becoming president. That's why they saved Hillary. And they didn't apply the laws equally in that case. Equal application, equal justice under the law. That was gone. Constitutional order was disrupted, and now you have a few powerful figures that think they know better than we, the American people, who should have been elected. Now, here's where it even gets worse. Now we know, with the revelations recently, and that's Lindsey Graham's committee, Peter Strzok said, we don't have anything. There's no evidence of any Russia collusion. But they kept it going anyway. This was early in 2017.
Right.
They signed 2 more warrants thereafter, right?
Appointed a special counsel.
Appointed a special counsel. None of this, who knew what, where, and when? And then it gets even worse. Because when people were put under oath, and this was the information that corrupt, compromise, congenital liar Adam Schiff, ironically the only guy on tape, trying to collude with somebody he thinks is a Russian, it turns out to be a hoaxer. He says, so you have compromising materials on Donald Trump? Compromising materials on Donald Trump. What's the nature of the compromise? Pics of naked Trump, naked Trump. Has Vladimir seen them? But of course, Vladimir seen. Vusova, naked pic, compromising materials. Funny, but not funny. Hillary's paid for the Russian dirty dossier. Hillary did it. They're claiming Donald Trump. Now you have Strzok and everybody on the 7th floor of the FBI, the DOJ, right? Most powerful people in the world take what they knew to be true and they don't go back, which is they're required to by law. You pointed that out to me first, and update the application warrant. Okay, unverifiable, then debunked.
Right.
Now we have so many examples where they got to the subsource that they interviewed in January 21st of 2017, 3 separate days of interviews. The subsource said, this was bar talk, literally said bar talk. You were the first to say after reading it, and I read it after you, that when you read the dossier, it's like ridiculously funny in a sick way because you can't believe any of it. Then we find out they didn't think they had they had no information. Also confirmed in this very important January 5th Oval Office meeting, Biden is there. He's the one that mentions the Logan Act in that meeting, as we now know from Peter Strzok's personal notes. Obama is there saying, get our people on this, and maybe we shouldn't tell the incoming administration things about national security. Susan Rice was there. Well, That was January 5th. 15 days later, now we know why she went back and memorialized. He said do everything by the book because she knew they didn't do everything by the book.
CYA memo.
CYA. And Sally Yates admits she was shocked that Barack Obama knew everything about General Flynn and the call with his soon-to-be Russian counterpart, Kislyak. And the irony, too, is when you go back then to the House Intelligence Committee, when we finally got those transcripts, all of these officials said that they had also did the same thing with their soon-to-be counterparts when they're going into the Obama administration, but they all said the other same thing, and that is that they had no evidence of any collusion. But they did it. When this finally, it's going to be very fascinating to see what Durham and Barr ultimately do here. I believe the evidence is overwhelming and incontrovertible that this was the biggest abuse of power. I believe that people lied. My sources are now telling me that there are lower-ranking officials.
Yes, some that we've never even heard of.
That are telling the truth and have evidence to back it up. There was spying going on another side of this, and that was across the pond, if you will. Mm-hmm. Why did I always say, gee, I wonder what the people in Great Britain were doing, or the people in Italy were doing, or some of our counterparts in Australia? Because now we have an intelligence side of all of this, and we now know we know that there are lies in the Mueller report about Joseph Misford, for example. Right. He was Western intelligence.
We were outsourcing some of the spying on our own citizens.
Bingo, to circumvent American law.
That's right. One wonders what would have happened if the FBI had actually been honest that we have no evidence, that it's all an invented lie.
But
I want to turn to page...
Could I just say one thing, though? Lisa Page said it in her text. No, it was Strzok that said, no, they're there. And Lisa Page said, this is pretty much the same thing.
But they're only talking to themselves, their own little miniature echo chamber.
But now we know they were telling others.
Right.
Yeah.
Page 124. How does the FBI get away with turning its powerful tools on the man the United States citizenry elected as president? How do we end up with a special counsel who completely ignores FBI abuse and instead spends 2 years tyrannizing the Trump White House? The answer is the swamp. So my question to you is, how confident are you that the swamp will actually be held accountable criminally?
Well, let me backtrack. If I say the title of the book is Live Free or America Dies, if we don't get it right, if there's not a price to pay, justice is dead in America. This is a constitutional republic. I start out the book, a republic if you can keep it, right?
Ben Franklin.
Ben Franklin. And if you don't, that Constitution, and you're the lawyer here, you're more versed in this than I am, but that is the foundation of our entire justice system and the rule of law. The principle of equal justice under the law and equal application under our laws then no longer exist. I would already argue that it's missing because the treatment of Papadopoulos withholding exculpatory information in his case, or for a process crime of lying to Congress in Roger Stone's case, where 29 guys in tactical gear, frogmen, pre-dawn raid, guns drawn, and CNN cameras tipped off, okay, that's an abuse of power. Same with Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort's case was dead, gone, and buried. Politico describes how it was a DNC operative that got that out of mothballs because they wanted to hurt Trump. Then you add to that all of General Flynn. I mean, this is how we treat a 33-year war hero because they didn't think he was lying, but they said that they were going to go after his son who was in business with him unless he signed that paper. He was being a good father. He signed the paper to save his son.
Yes.
That's what he did, and they made him do it. And he still, it's been forever for him to get the justice in his case. So the answer is, forget it. Look, I'm going to be very blunt here. Republics fail historically. America can fail. America, as we know it, can collapse. And the biggest part that the point I'm trying to make is I go through what has made America, I believe, the greatest country God has given man? The answer simply is freedom and liberty, capitalism against socialism. Now you have the most radical group of extreme socialists that are, this is what they're offering, this radical agenda. I give the history of the rise of radicals. I gave the 2020 utopian vision. We talked at length about the Green New Deal. I talked at length about Bolshevik Bernie's economic policies. I've talked at length about Beto Bozo's assault on the Second Amendment. Then Schumer, Pelosi, and Biden, 125 years of failure. Greg, if what they are running on is ever implemented, bye-bye American pie, it's over. Right. America as we know it will be changed forever. Irreparable damage will be done if those policies that they're stating publicly are implemented. How serious am I? Serious as a heart attack. Serious that, this all goes away. And I'll tell you what else is going to happen. Because I keep going back to the cities, because they're the experiment, right? Okay, you've got this form of socialism and high taxation and endless bureaucracy that exists in states like New York, in states like Illinois, cities like New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, states like California, Oregon, Washington State, Seattle, and Portland, the cities. Anecdotally, why is it the biggest mass exodus in the country is out of those blue states run by liberal Democrats for decades? Well, reasons obvious. People are running away from burdensome bureaucracy, high taxes, endless regulation, broken promises, waste of money, fraud and abuse. And here's the thing. How is it possible that California, you want to move out of California, San Francisco, LA, go to Texas, U-Haul costs, we've gone and checked. Governor Huckabee was the first to point this out to me. About $2,500, $2,000, $2,500 to go from California to drag your crap, your stuff, our stuff, whatever. I move more often than I'd like to admit in my life. I was a radio traveler for many years. And but if you take that same U-Haul back to California, you don't pay $2,500, you pay $400. And you could probably negotiate a lower rate. You want to know why? Because you're doing U-Haul a favor. Because they needed the truck back there because that's where the profits are going to be made. After the disastrous coverage of the pandemic in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Michigan, California did a little better. I credit Governor Gavin Newsom for that. He did pretty well there. And then the lawlessness and the anarchists taking over. Then you add to that the lack of safety, security, the lack of education, socialism, government-run schools, government can't protect its citizens, and I'm just telling you this is a microcosm. This is a preview of coming attractions to the United States. I sound a little dire and maybe not as optimistic as maybe some people would like. Well, I'm not optimistic if this is adopted.
I want to talk about the media because you do at great length.
The mob.
The media mob, as you describe them, the liberal mainstream media, you argue they are so obsessed with their pathological hatred for Trump, they've dropped all semblance of objectivity. They spread lies, distortion, and propaganda. How destructive has the media mob been? Have they squandered all trust?
I can't even give enough adjectives to describe it. The worst part is it's 99% of the media. Fake news CNN is fake news. To the president's credit, he has branded them for who they are. We've talked as conservatives. I'm 33 years in radio. I'm in my 25th year at Fox. This isn't exactly my first rodeo, Greg. And we've always talked about media bias, known about Media Research Center for all these years. It's never been this bad. The example I use is it's every second, every minute, every hour of every 24-hour day, 7 days a week, every month. Ever since that man and his wife came down that escalator in Trump Tower, they have been on a mission to destroy his presidency with the help of some very powerful people in the deep state that think they're smarter than we smelly Walmart shopper Trump voters, irredeemable deplorables, as Hillary called us, or that cling to our God, Bibles, guns, and religion. Or, as Biden says, we get a chance to rewrite the economy and transform America. What does that mean? Well, we know who he surrounded himself with. So the mob, they don't tell the truth. They lied about Russia. They got it wrong. They lied. They hyped. It was smear, slander, lie, besmirchments, character assassination, you name it, they did it all.
Well, and you were demonized for taking a very strong position that, wait a minute, where's the evidence? This is a hoax. You got it right because newly discovered documents certainly prove it.
So did you.
And the media got it wrong. How does that make you feel?
You know, I'd like to be able to take a big victory lap, but, you know, number one, we don't have time. There's too many other things to do. Would have been nice if they would admit that they've been wrong. It would have been nice if they would retract and apologize and correct. You know, I make mistakes, and when I do, I go on there, sorry, I messed up.
Now they're happy with their Pulitzer Prizes.
Oh yeah, they get Pulitzer Prizes for false stories.
Right.
The scariest part of it, though, to me, is I mentioned you and our ensemble cast. Weren't many of us, Greg.
No.
20?
Yeah.
In Congress, really all in to get to the truth? 15 more? 12 more?
10 or 15.
10 or 15? Okay, we went up against the entire media industrial complex. We told the American people the truth, you know, and hopefully justice is on the other end of it. I'll tell you, as somebody that, you know, his mom, as I told you earlier, was a prison guard, dad, you know, family court probation. I had 2 family members that got to be FBI special agents. They were deity in my family. They were the highest of the high. That was the ultimate. So many relatives, distant cousins, etc., all became cops. These are honorable people. And I have to now go take on the FBI. It went against every fiber of my being. But we were right, and they did abuse their power.
And they did enormous damage to not just President Trump, but the presidency itself, the institution.
And Director Wray needs to get his act together and fix the premier law enforcement agency in the world.
Well,
or get out of the way. I know where you stand.
Yeah, with Christopher Wray at the helm,
Bye-bye.
it won't happen. I want to quote you about President Trump. No president in the modern era has had to take such unprecedented, sustained attacks by both liberal democratic socialists and the media mob in an attempt to destroy him and tear him down. Do you worry that in the end, that powerful force may succeed in the upcoming election?
Came closer than it ever should. I mean, imagine how the breathtaking hypocrisy you must take on. Understand this, liberals care about obstruction of justice, right? After the Mueller report came out, they didn't care at all about the bleach bit, subpoenaed emails deleted, the devices busted, the SIM cards removed.
Hillary Clinton obstruction of justice.
Correct. They didn't care. They care about Russia. They didn't care about her Russian dirty dossier. They care about quid pro quos. You got Joe on tape bragging, you're not getting the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor investigating my zero experience son who's being paid millions. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. I call it the Biden crime family at this point. And so it's not truth that they're seeking. They have the biggest donor in 2020 to any presidential campaign is the mob and the media. One of the reasons, you know, we've been the highest rated show in cable for so long is that we do tell a story and give news and information you are not going to get anywhere else, and we actually dig for the truth, and we don't rush to judgment, and we believe in the Constitution and justice. These things, principles like this matter. Now, success, you know, how do you define success? Even in the back of my brain, assuming that they're going to have to choke on the words, we can now project that Donald J. Trump has been reelected the 45th president of the United States. By the way, that will be worth the price of admission on steroids and human growth hormone, because they think they got this locked up. But if they have to me, I worry if this is now where indoctrination in our school system has gotten us, that they no longer hide their radicalism. And they've convinced younger generations center left is where America goes, but it's really hard left. Donald Trump will be, at best, buying America time. Now, how do you fix that? because there's got to be a process of education, a process of understanding freedom. What does freedom mean? Freedom means that not everything is secured. You have the God-given talents and abilities, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee you're going to get it, but you have the chance. Listen, I'm a firm believer that Americans can't fail. Let's create, imagine a New York City, Chicago, Seattle, LA, San Francisco, where there is safety and security, or Portland. And let's imagine that the school system is rigorous education. Let's imagine that the rungs of the ladder that I argue are missing from these states of socialism, experimental states of socialism, are put back in place. I actually have an idea. I think we should have K through 12 curriculum online, available for free for every parent, grandparent, loving neighbor, that if the school system's failing them, they can go follow the curriculum online to guarantee the education that these liberal states have failed to deliver on. I can't help with safety and security unless, of course, the Insurrection Act is put in place. They don't want any help. If you do that, we can save America. And by saving America, you know, what does it mean? Lower taxes, limited government, greater freedom. We have got to accept that energy is the lifeblood of the world's economy. We got to produce it. We got to secure our borders. Peace through strength, not appeasement. You don't dump $150 billion in cash and another currency on the tarmac of mullahs that chant death to America. If we put people that respect our Constitution, our foundation for the rule of law, on the courts, secure our borders, if we give, you know, health savings accounts, healthcare cooperatives that I can prove over and over again are working and saving people money, and it would give every American even concierge healthcare with access to a doctor 24/7 using new technology like telemedicine, just like teleeducation, which could save a fortune. You know, there's nothing America can't do. We have been the shining city on the hill. Some people will argue in this day and age, well, we've always been evil. We're not a perfect country because Thomas Paine once said, people aren't perfect. Were the guides and dictates of one's conscience irresistibly obeyed, he wrote in Common Sense, there'd be no need for any lawgiver. That not being the case, because human beings are flawed, and sin, and we have a propensity for good or evil, but I believe we're all created by God, but that propensity, which path do you choose, or maybe chosen for you because of circumstances, you know, he says in the best case, government is but a necessary evil. Its worst case, an intolerable one. The intolerable one is on the ballot this year. The wreckage, the carnage to the economy, incalculable. Irreparable harm to our freedoms, incalculable. You know, this is a warning cry to every American. I didn't want to write this book. You write great books. It's too hard. I'll be very honest. It is hard work. I did it because this is the moment of a lifetime. Live free, or this great country, as we know it, if the policies of Biden, Bolshevik Bernie, AOC, Schumer Pelosi, and Beto Bozo are in effect, I argue, will never recover. Ever.
Our future can be either bright or gloomy.
Pretty much.
And November may decide that.
If I say in the book, going back to the very beginning, is it a monarchy or is it a republic? The republic is at stake here. Capitalism, socialism, energy independence or dependence, open borders, closed borders.
Lawlessness or
lawlessness, anarchy, or law and order and safety and security, fixing America's broken educational system, higher taxes, lower taxes, peace through strength, appeasement, tough trade deals with partners, manufacturing goods at home, saving our manufacturing industry. So, you know, maybe, in a sense, this is a heavy interview. But I feel, you know, with all the knowledge that I've accumulated in 33 years of radio, and now my 25th year at Fox, I could tell you right now, if people are foolish enough to think that America's freedoms are always guaranteed, read the words of Ronald Reagan that I put in the book.
Right.
That freedom is always but one generation away from extinction. And it's now our responsibility to preserve, protect, defend freedom and liberty for our children and grandchildren and future generations. That's how serious I see it. I'd rather joke around and talk about baseball. I'd rather talk about football. I'd rather talk about other things. We can talk about them on November 4th. And let's hope the media chokes on those words, to choke on it. Be worth the price of admission. CNN, we can now project Donald J. Trump been reelected. Can you imagine them having to say that? I lived through 8 years of Obama. I don't think we can live through 8 years of Bolshevik Bernie, AOC, Joe, Pelosi, Schumer, and Beto.
Sean Hannity, thank you very much. The name of your new book coming out is Live Free or Die. I read it cover to cover. It's
I
beautifully.
know you did. I saw you mark it up.
It's beautifully written. The arguments are compelling, well researched.
Thank you.
Thoroughly sourced. And you told me you were never going to write another book again a couple of years ago, and here it is. You did it. And I think the readers in America owe you a debt of gratitude.
All I want is if you say to yourself, what can I do? If all you can do is vote, thank you. If you can educate people, that's what this book is about. Don't buy 2 copies, share it, pass it around. My last book, I gave every penny away to charity. It's not about, this for me is about the moment. This is America on the verge, tipping point. It's all on the line. To win an election for a Republican is not easy, Greg. You gotta win Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. You gotta take Iowa, you gotta get Ohio. You gotta pick off Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, hopefully Michigan, maybe Minnesota will be in play. You gotta hold Arizona, fight for Nevada, fight for New Mexico, fight for New Hampshire, fight for the 2nd Congressional District in Maine. They all matter. Every vote matters.
You've been a good sport. Due to COVID and social distancing, we chose to do this.
It's 100 degrees, and I just worked out.
We did it outdoors, and you're
sweating like a pig.
You're a great sport about it.
No, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have
a great colleague and a good friend. Thank you.
Same here.
For being with us.
Thank you so much, Greg.
And that's it for this special edition on Fox Nation. I'm Greg Jarrett. Thanks for being with us.